Sukuna's death is okay. In a series as morbid and macabre as Jujutsu Kaisen, characters' lives are lost all throughout. Main characters, side characters, heroes, villains, it does not matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much you like a character, they will always be at the behest of their one-eyed king,
you stupid cat!
Gege Akutami. However, throughout the course of Jujutsu Kaisen, something has become incredibly apparent, more so in JJK than in other series. Gege has some serious bias regarding the characters he has created. Toji and Sukuna being his clear favourites for him to draw, as well as Gege having a bit of narrative bias towards them. Of all the characters he's created, those two are clearly the author's favourite, which makes it all the more strange when we look at the build-up for Sukuna's death. One of the author's favourite characters, the first real villain we are introduced to, and the de facto main antagonist after Kenjaku's death. After over 250 chapters of build-up, his death is okay, I guess. It's not great. Before we get to my opinion on the matter, let's just talk about the build-up first. What happened before his death that may lead some people to not be a huge fan of his departure from the series. Chapter 1. Ryomen Sukuna. The first chapter of the entire series shares its name with the King of Curses, and from this chapter onwards, Sukuna and his resurrection is the main thread that is maintained throughout the entire story. This is a given due to it intrinsically being linked to our main protagonist, Yuji Itadori. I mean, upon Sukuna's initial reveal, we are shown how domineering a presence he is. In his first panel, we see him dispatch a curse that nearly completely destroyed Megami. Him being a grade 2 at the time, meaning this curse was probably a grade 1 level curse, given how the grade system works. Sukuna, with a flick of his wrist and a single finger of strength, a 20th of his soul, dispatches it immediately. Then as we slowly continue, Gojo feeds Yuji another one of Sukuna's fingers, and we then get the infamous seeds being planted for a battle between Gojo and Sukuna. The strongest of their errors, nah, I'd win. The original declaration of this being all the way back in chapter 3. Perfectly being foreshadowed this early on. I love this is great. Jump a little bit further, we see an interaction between Sukuna and the Finger Bearer, a special grade curse. Sukuna, only having 2 fingers of power at this point, eliminates the curse with little issue, and then quickly gains another finger's worth of power. Proceeds to rip out Yuji's heart and rush down Megami, become bewitched by him for some reason, planting more seeds for future events. Then Yuji regains control over his body and he dies for like half a day. Then inside Sukuna's innate domain, we see him making a binding vow with Yuji that will yet again plant seeds for future actions in the series. Sukuna is a character that is all about foreshadowing. It's almost as if Sukuna's character was like 200 chapters or so of build-up for his fully powered return. Cut to the end of the Versus Mahito arc, just after the Disaster Curse uses Idol Transfiguration on Junpei, Yuji asks for Sukuna to help Junpei. He refuses. However, during this we also see Mahito attempt to use his domain and in turn accidentally touch Sukuna's soul, resulting in him being ripped apart, as well as foreshadowing Mahito's future use of his domain in the series. Then we don't see the King of Curses for much, right? He disappears for a little bit, only to show up to steal a finger after the Finger Bearer and Iso and Kechizu fights. Then another bit of a jump, now we get to the Shibuya incident. Besides the Shinjuku showdown, the Shibuya incident is the point in the series where Sukuna is the most active in more than a few different ways. He's actively being a part of the narrative again. The incident itself almost revolving around 2 moving parts, Gojo being sealed and Sukuna's revival, hence why Jogo tries to get Sukuna to make a binding vow with him. It also reinforces the possibility for Yuji to be executed at some point in the series due to Kusakabe being in agreement with that sentiment due to the destruction Sukuna causes. How does Sukuna cause this destruction? Him fighting Jogo. This fight resulted in Sukuna reuniting with Uraume, Jogo being absolutely demolished. Then immediately afterwards we get the start of the fight with Sukuna and Maharaga, and in turn this saves Megami's life after he starts the exorcism ritual for Maharaga against Haruta. What a bum. This resulted in Sukuna destroying Maharaga with the cost of creating a hole in the middle of Shibuya with a combination of Malevolent Shrine and Furnace. MS just ends up turning every civilian in a 200-meter radius into a nice thin paste, and then the Flame Arrow cooks the paste so much that nothing's left, including Inumaki's arm. It's just gone. But after Sukuna eradicates Maharaga in Shibuya and leaves Yuji with the trauma of killing about a small town's worth of innocent civilians, Sukuna disappears again for a little bit. He shows up for like a panel when Yuta hunts Yuji down. He gets mentioned in the Higuruma fight as Yuji gets put on trial for the destruction in the Shibuya incident itself. But overall, since Yuji is kind of in the background in the Culling games, Sukuna also takes a bit of a backseat as well. But arguably, he still has a major presence here. Hearing Uro and Ryu recount things about the King of Curses, as well as Uro's last remarks to Yuta about a sorcerer's sense of self and how that is one of the things that is required to be one of the strongest, and her comparison is to Sukuna, it just goes to show his presence is still felt throughout this arc and this world, despite his lack of actual appearances in the Culling Games. He's a constant in the universe without him even directly interacting with it. That in of itself foreshadows a spectacular end, his being casting a shadow upon characters without us even knowing. The closest comparison I can make with this form of foreshadowing with a character is with Naruto and the foreshadowing with Madara, because it feels very similar to me. Madara's name was brought up very early on in Shippuden, however he was a present force even before that. His statue being in the background of the Hidden Valley during the first major final bout between Naruto and Sasuke. He is just this presence that has affected the ninja world in an incalculable way. Sasuke suppresses the Nine Tails really early on in Shippuden. He suppresses the Nine Tails chakra, and Kurama himself compares Sasuke to Madara. He is a character that is mentioned frequently by other characters in passing, and before he was ever really shown to us, had greatly impacted the world we were shown. And when Madara goes all out, it takes an entire war arc to get rid of both Madara and Sukuna. They're both really cool, and they both meet very annoying deaths, in my opinion. As the Culling Games itself comes to a conclusion, we get a few little more snippets about Sukuna. We get this random ass line about him being the fallen one. Just like Miwa in the Culling Games, this will never be expanded upon. I mean, why would I want plot threads to be explained? Am I right? We get Sukuna making use of the binding vow he made with Yuji all the way back in chapter 11, being used all the way here in chapter 212. 201 chapters ahead, being foreshadowed through the binding vow itself, as well as Sukuna's fascination with Megami, which has been shown at certain points throughout the series. This is great. Sukuna as a character is one that has been built up and paid off well. That's how Sukuna's appearances work. Him showing back up in a major way will be heavily foreshadowed, and he'll have a huge payoff. And as a result, it builds up to this crazy amount of hype over time for Sukuna moments, as well as his inevitable end. So let's get into the thick of it now. Another moment where Sukuna is at his most active. Sukuna x Gojo. The Shinjuku Showdown, this fight was spectacular and highlights Sukuna's strengths as an antagonist, as well as how much of an impenetrable wall he will act as for the anti-Sukuna squad. This fight is filled with constant back and forths and kind of emphasizes the intriguing eccentricities of the cursed energy power system. It is a battle that is 13 chapters long and is constantly entertaining. Domain clashes, black flashes, etc. But of course, this ends with Sukuna being victorious. Let's go through what we've seen Sukuna do so far in a little bit of a nutshell. We've seen him plan 200 chapters ahead to take over someone else's body, as well as absolutely demolish any human, curse, or shikigami that is placed in front of him. So a dragged out battle of attrition is the only way this character is going to come to an end. Then we move on to the Sukuna Gauntlet. As big of a joke as it is, it's just genuinely insane. Okay, Kashimo, Choso, Higuruma, Yuta, Yuji, Maki, Ino, Kusakabe, Miguel, Laru, Todo, Yuta again, but as Gojo, Angel, Nobara, and then eventually Yuji is the one to take out the King of Curses. It took such a large roster of characters, not including supporting characters like Ui Ui and Mei Mei and Miwa, to take down this character. So a spectacular death must be in store for everyone's favourite malicious, mighty mental case. No, in my opinion, he just kind of goes out like Kenjaku, which in of itself is another character death that majority of people have issues with, and rightfully so. So let's talk about how Sukuna actually died. So Nobara just kind of wakes up from a nap, hits resonance on Sukuna's final finger, resulting in Yuji being able to capitalize and finish off Sukuna. Instead of Yuji inside of his own domain, taking out Sukuna on his own, Nobara literally wakes up from a nap, hits resonance on a hidden finger, which is something that everyone predicted, like it was a fan theory during the Sukuna and Gojo fight. Nobara does exactly what everyone thought she would do, hits resonance, and within the span of 11 pages, Sukuna is forced from Megami and turned into this. Now this form isn't bad, I have no issue with this being the final form of Sukuna. After he's forced from his host's body, I don't. But it's how quickly it goes from Nobara hitting resonance, which is something people predicted for like a literal year. Like, I know what Gege was going for here, okay? He's going for this vision where it wasn't just Yuji taking out Sukuna, it was the original trio. Megumi takes back control, sinking Sukuna's feet into the Chimera Shadow Garden, then Nobara hits resonance and Yuji finishes the job. It's supposed to be a culmination of the three coming together again for one last time to put a neat little bow on this character we call Sukuna. But the issue is, Megumi barely does anything. Nobara is still rubbing sleep out of her one good eye when she's hitting resonance, and the fact is, it's inside of Yuji's domain, which is another issue. How the hell did Nobara know when to hit resonance? They can't use those TVs to watch what's inside those domains, so Nobara randomly just does it, and then it just happens to hit when Sukuna is about to use Malevolent Shrine. Nice little bit of timing from Gege there. Like, Sukuna's death wasn't even an actual full chapter. It is so jarring. We get this death, right? The death of a character whose name is so impactful. The name of the first chapter is literally Ryomen Sukuna, and the full chapter isn't even dedicated to his death. We get this dog water time skip just so Gege can properly unite the trio instead of actually neatly tying together Sukuna's death. There are parts that I like about it. Sukuna finally referring to Yuji by his actual name for the first time. That's a great little bit of nuance that I like. It feels like when Vegeta calls Goku Goku instead of Kakarot. Yes, that's exceedingly rare and sometimes just a dubbing issue, but it's the same concept. A character finally breaking their code and accepting defeat. Calling a character by their actual name, right? It's nice. But in Sukuna's case, I just wish it was in a better scenario. I mean, as soon as Sukuna dies, Urame just gives up and just kind of lets go of this plane of existence. Like, then we just smash cut to Megumi waking up. Like, it just sucks. As I say, there are parts I like. I'm fine with the Sukuna gauntlet. Yuji getting the actual kill, that's fine. Yuta's sacrifice is trash, we're aware of that, it's not great. Nobara using resonance now instead of using it when Higurumu was getting washed and would have allowed him to get the kill with the Executioner's sword. I don't like that. I like Megumi resisting. I just wish the final part of the battle was a little bit longer so we could see Megumi actually fighting back against Sukuna a little bit more. Maybe reduce his output even more and maybe activate something else. I don't know. But instead of more of this interesting internal dialogue between Sukuna and Megumi, Megumi's biggest contribution is just crying so much he made a puddle for Sukuna to slip into. I like the dialogue between Sukuna and Yuji as well as Sukuna and Megumi. I like it. Despite all of this fighting, Sukuna is still fearful of death. I mean, of course he is. He separated his soul so he could come back. He doesn't want to be dead, and he doesn't want to end on a loss, but he accepts it, embracing himself as a curse with his final breath, and that's good. But the path we took to get here was a bumpy one, with contrived timings as well as plot threads that literally fell flat on their face. But overall, as I say, there are things to like and things to very much dislike about Sukuna's death. So overall, to me, and I imagine a lot of other people feel this way, Sukuna's death wasn't one befitting the king of curses, yet it had moments and the potential to be something much greater. And as a result, I think Sukuna's death was okay. But yeah, that's all I've got. Doodles my doodles, hopefully see you in the next one. Peace. Yeah, nice one.